Wake up, get ready, time to shine, it's your day.
Wonderful. Well, Dan, thank you so much and welcome everybody. Such as Alan, this is actually my first time speaking with FRBR2, so I'm excited about the opportunity. And thank you, Steve Levy, my partner in crime, for helping me out with the slideshow. Interestingly enough, I am a Senior Vice President in Talent Sourcing at M&T Bank. I've been here for about 17 years. Been in recruiting for a little bit too much longer than I would think, but I would consider myself a talent sourcing expert and a recruitment expert that has experienced everything that we've all experienced. Now, everyone's probably going to raise their hand. I'm sure AI and fraud are becoming a part of everyone's everyday life. And the funniest thing is, I've always wanted to speak at such events as such as the Self, but would I ever think about talking about AI fraud candidates? I always thought I had the passion for sourcing and recruiting. But what's happening is that this is becoming part of our daily lives. And it's changing every step of the way. It's changing daily, it's changing monthly, just with new technologies. M&T Bank has seen a huge increase in fraud applications, in interview fraud, in background check fraud. And it came to a point this year where we actually had to start a committee, a project committee starting in January of this year, where we have to deal with this. And it's not just a TA-wide thing. It is literally it's bank-wide. So we have many partners in crime kind of helping us with this. So, Steve, if you wouldn't mind taking us to the next slide. We are going to go over application fraud, resume and interview fraud, background check, fingerprint and I-9 process, and tracking suspicious personas. Now, I'm not going to sit there and say I'm a subject matter expert on these, but interestingly enough, I want to kind of, before I get into this, fraud throughout the recruitment and hiring process, which happens from start to finish. Couple of things that I've been noticing the last 2 years by managing sourcers and recruiters in the areas of technology and specifically in IT audit as well. I posted a job for a technology sourcer on my team that I was looking for about a year ago. Within 15 minutes, I had over 1,000 applications in 15 minutes. And I'm like, this is crazy. We have to take this down. This has never happened to me. Well, we did a little bit of investigating. We took the requisition down. And it turns out it was third-party application sites. They were bots. And I was like, this is absolutely crazy. Another thing that caught my attention as well was our level when our folks were getting offers. Education verification and reference check fraud is going through the roof. We're getting to the end point. Once again, it takes it throughout the entire process. And we are now having to become more careful, more diligent on even our reference check as well as our onboarding. Another thing that happened to me, and I was telling this to Steve the other day, is I was on an interview for a technology software engineer. And I was listening to the person, they were asking my questions, I was asking job-specific questions, and it turns out there was literally someone in the corner of the room feeding them the answers. I also had another interview where someone had an earpiece in their ear. We also have a technology screening testing called Codility that we use for our software engineers. People were actually using different websites to cheat. So what's interestingly enough is this is penetrating all areas of talent acquisition, and we once again have to be really much on top of how can we stop this from happening? How can we make it a good candidate experience, but also to not be in danger of this happening to us? So you can see here there's some application fraud warning signs. First and foremost, look for that too perfect application. Meaning, you've got the job description, which is what every candidate knows that they should match to perfectly for a recruiter to call the candidate. But you can see on these resumes is that they take the keywords from the job description and perfectly match them into their resume. But they're very vague on their accomplishments, and there's no data, which we all want. We want the data. How do you measure success in your current role? They're not happening on these resumes. So you have to make sure when you're reading the resume, is this really for real? Is this perfect? Is this person that perfect? Also, too, another thing to look out for is inconsistent writing style. You'll see it going from formal language to casual language on the same page. That's not normal. We always say it has to be in the same tense. It should read all the same, but we're starting to see they might have used maybe ChatGPT, which is fine for the resume, but then they're also putting in some other areas that just don't make sense. Almost like you've got two different people on one resume. And also, two, generic details of their companies, lack of company specific knowledge, and their responses to all the questions are red flags. So when you're actually talking to these folks on an interview and their resumes in front of you, and you're asking them those job specific questions, what have you done? Give me examples of projects. They're giving you standardized responses. Those are very much red flags that they cannot speak to the detail of what they've done. Also, two, foreign nationals are not disclosing employment visas are being hired into ineligible roles. There is a huge uptick in this. And even though Workday is our applicant tracking system, and we have a new AI system called Eightfold. So that's what's kind of nice. Eightfold has kind of changed our lives with AI. We're very excited to have it. The recruiters have it, sourcers have it. We put in the requisition, the intake, we put in all the parameters that we look for. And the great thing is it searches the system and it staff ranks people. But what's happening is it's not taking away the piece from the foreign nationals. When they're filling out those pre-screening questions, they are not stating that they need citizenship. They're not saying that they need sponsorship. So literally what's happening is that we're actually now having to put in the job description headers that we do not sponsor F1 student visas. We're actually putting that in, which we never have really done before, but that is consistently going in. And then also two, they're also misrepresenting themselves throughout the interview process. Also two, throughout the application process. When they're coming down to that offer and we're sending them for background checks, they're still not divulging, I need sponsorship. And this is happening more often than not. Gone are the days where we already knew if this person needed sponsorship or not. And also, too, international students, we have an early talent program. You probably are all seeing this across the board. I think colleges are telling these folks, please do not mention, they want them to get the roles, do not mention you need sponsorship. They're on an F1. Well, they can work here for 2 or 3 years and they don't need that sponsorship. But what happens when they do finish those 2 or 3 years? We are then on the hook to make sure that they can stay. So you can see here throughout the entire process, foreign nationals are not disclosing the employment visa. You have to be diligent in making sure you're doing all the right things and looking at the pre-screening questions and looking through the background check process. But it starts with the job description. We're even putting it out there even more. That's not solving the problem, but at least it's out there for folks to see. Next slide, Steve. Resume and interview fraud detection. You can see here to the left, our picture, there's an AI generated resume, and to the right, there is a human resume. So we have seen both copies of resumes, which is interesting. I'm not going to lie. When I do interview counseling sessions with our internal employees, we will go to ChatGPT. We will use Microsoft Copilot. I am not against using AI for resumes, but it's when it's used in a fraud detection or where it's just going awry, so to say. So you can see here, always make sure that you cross-reference resume details, making sure that dates, job titles, and responsibilities are consistent. You could look at other applications that this person has had in your system because most likely they've actually applied to different roles. Check to see, have they changed their date? Have they changed their job titles? And have they changed their responsibilities to match different roles? When you're interviewing them, remember, ask the situational questions, such as I said in a previous slide. Getting their detailed work experience with job-specific examples and making sure that they understand what this role is about and that you're comfortable enough, you know what the answers are, you're doing the intake with the hiring manager. Is this relevant or not? Also, too, I had mentioned this before, I literally have been duped on screens for technology. I've had people sitting in the back feeding answers. I've had people with earbuds. Watch for delayed responses. Look for script reading or inconsistent eye contact where they might be looking this way or that way. It is happening, which is why video interviewing, because we are still in that virtual world, that remote world, video interviewing is key. Do the best you possibly can, but I'm going to be old fashioned. There's nothing wrong with having someone come in and flying them here for a job and meeting them face to face. Also, too, another way you can verify, check their LinkedIn profiles. See if they have consistencies. Also, too, you can know this if someone is LinkedIn verified. That's another piece of it where you know they actually have to have a valid email address for their LinkedIn profile. But also, too, check out their certifications. Check out their professional networks. Look at their employee testimonials. There's so many, I'm just trying to think, there's so many profiles that I've seen that are just very fraudulent. It's so obvious, and you can tell if those details are not filled out. Steve, next slide. We kind of already gone through this, but you can see here, we all know about deep fake. We talked about lip syncing, earpieces. This is all helping the candidates who are trying to get fraud to get through the interview process. What's happening is we are actually training our recruiters now to make sure that they are they have to have video interviews. Our recruiters were doing a lot of phone interviews. Even for our production jobs, our non-exempt roles, we are now incorporating, they have to have those face-to-face is ideal, that's great, but obviously in the ideal world, they have to at least have a video interview. And you can see here, we are a hybrid bank. We do not have any remote roles unless it's maybe approved through the hiring manager anymore. And even that is happening with our job application. We are still getting fraud. We are still detecting it. But also, too, when you're talking about the hybrid role schedule, it starts with the rec consult with your hiring manager. So basically, you're using those probing questions to flush out the lack of experience that someone can have, which is why the intake is so, so important, even in the beginning stages. And discuss with your hiring manager where application flag red flags can be and how do you handle that fraud, because they're not educated either. So we are now having to come up with a training program for our hiring managers to detect fraud as well. And keep in mind, we just started this in January. We are still learning. We are not considering ourselves subject matter experts, but what's happening is the bots are skyrocketing, the interview fraud on the videos is skyrocketing, and they're getting through the hiring process, and in the background, an offer check process is skyrocketing. So you can see we're getting hit from soup to nuts. Also, too, the background check verification process, the initial screening, confirm your basic credentials and employment history. Biometric verification, we have that. We actually collect fingerprints to make sure that that person is the person that they say they are. Make sure you get an I-9 to make sure that they are the person who they say they are and they have written in-person documentation. And reference calls, make sure you do speak to past colleagues or previous employers. Steve, go ahead. And you can see here, this slide has got a lot going on. All the other slides have a lot going on. You will all get copies of this towards the end, and I'm not going to go through this whole thing. But what we're trying to describe here is that it starts from the beginning when the recruiter launches the reference check. This is the background check process and takes you all the way through. We are putting parameters around our operations team, our cybersecurity team, our hiring managers. It takes a village to just hire one person nowadays. Next slide. I had mentioned we are in a hybrid work environment right now. So what's happening is candidates must be physically present 3 days a week in the office, 2 days a week remote. So we are making sure that all of our employees have remote proper equipment to verify themselves when they sign in. We are also credentialing any type of certification and degrees throughout the screening process. And also we are now verifying not just the last employer, we are verifying all employers now before final offers are given. So you can see here, just with our new hiring techniques, we've had to change our ways from being a little bit more trusting to having to have parameters and rules for every single step. Personas, tracking suspicious personas. You can see here it's a pyramid. So you've got patterns of fraud where you're identifying the recurring behaviors across multiple applications. I just went through that. When they're applying for a job, have they changed the job title? Have they changed their education? Did they add a certification? Data repository, make sure that when your company is starting to identify patterns of fraud, that all suspicious applications and identities are housed in one area. It has to be studied. We have to do process improvement. It's constantly changing on a weekly basis, which is where my next point comes in. And I've said this 2 or 3 times. We have to work amongst each other between HR, security, and IT teams, as well as our legal department. This is not a TA issue. This is a bank-wide, this is a global company-wide issue for all companies, other even with banks. And then we're also, too, in the end, putting those safeguards in place. What does that look like based on what we've learned from past fraud attempts? Next slide. And you can see here is what I just said. We've got 2 committees. We've got cybersecurity on the committee. We've got recruiters. We have reviewers. Those are the people that are like the risk ranking folks. And we have approvers. Those are the people that are going to escalate and become saying, hey, this is going on in the applicant tracking system. They're going to be calling out the recruiters and saying, this is, you've got to do something. But you can tell we've got a committee 1 and a committee 2. One is on the fraud identification and risk framework. The second one is tracking and re-verification process. So once again, this just started. I cannot wait to come back and tell you guys what the outcome was. But by then, there's probably going to be about 20 more things that have happened. But I'm just wanted to tell you about my personal experience, about even just doing our jobs. I'm a sourcer, I'm a recruiter, and I'm a manager. And now I'm having to learn and become a subject matter expert in an area I never thought I'd have to. And we're all learning day by day. Next slide. So what's our next step? We're building our defensive. We're trying to make sure that there's a 24-hour response time with suspicious application activity. I told you about my chatbots. I had over 1,000 chatbots in 15 minutes. I shut the rep down. I said, I am not dealing with this. And then with those folks that applied, you have to verify them, making sure that those candidates are credentialed and that they're the finalist candidates. Are they even still good? Also, too, I had mentioned, and I hate to say this because of time to fill, and I don't like this, having 3 or more interview rounds. You've got behavioral-based interview questions, you've got the technical, you've got the HR interview, and you've got the verification. Having all of those interviews can verify if the person is who or what they say that they are. I like I said, I can't stand that, but that's just seems the way that we're going. And then also, too, you have to measure it. We've got key performance indicators. How do you measure the critical warning signs in every application? So you can see here, this is something that we're building up to, but we've also been learning as well. Steve, next slide. If you guys do want to get in touch with me, if you want to learn a little bit more specifically, rather than in just this 15 minutes I spoke to you, a little bit more about what my bank is doing personally on this fraud committee that I'm on, you've got my LinkedIn profile there. Reach out. But what I'm going to leave you with is beware but prepare.